Okay, we're holding at the 13th tenet of Jewish belief, and mentioned again, Rambam Maimonides is the one who codified these 13 tenets. And the reason why he chose the number 13, as we say very often, the numerical value of echod is 13. Meaning, if you want to have a relationship with the echod, with God, who's is the essence of everything, you have to believe in every one of these tenets. That's why he chose number 13. We're going to see when we do the last one, many of them really could be included in others, but he's fully fleshing it out that there should be no level of error, no level of misconception, no vagueness in terms of what exactly one's belief must be, and therefore there's no overlapping. Although they do overlap, some of them, as we're going to explain in a moment. The last tenet of Jewish belief is believing in resurrection. Could you imagine a person hasn't been alive for 3,000 years, and all of a sudden he's resurrected? What does resurrection mean? When a person leaves this existence, the physical existence, and he has a soul, we discussed many times, you read the narrative of the Torah, in time of creation, God created the human body from earth, and he blew into this human being's nostrils a soul of life. When that soul of life integrated into every aspect of that physicality, he became a living species, a living being. And according to the Aramaic translation on that word, a living being, he says a speaking species. He became an intelligible speaking species, meaning the power of speech emanates from the soul, that one is able to speak. Person dies. The soul is eternal. A person reaches the end of his life. The soul departs from the body. Where does the soul go? So there is a world, a spiritual world. It's referred to as Olam HaNeshamos. It's the soul world. The soul world is purely a holding pattern. The person lived his life as many years as he lived. 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, or God forbid his life was cut short. But during those years that he lived, he experienced many challenges. And every one of those challenges, he was in a position of taking initiative, either to suppress the inclination to do the wrong thing or to overcome the natural inclination not to do the right thing, and he did the right thing. So based on those initiatives, that will determine his level of classification. Is he classified as tzaddik, or is he classified as something which is contrary to that classification, which is Russia? If the majority of one's accomplishments, initiatives are positive, he's classified as tzaddik. If God forbid, if the majority is classified as in the negative column, he's classified as Russia. Rambam writes in the Laws of Tshuva that the evaluation is not a quantitative evaluation, but rather qualitative. And Rambam says, therefore, you have a situation where one person could do one good deed, and that good deed, in terms of its qualitative value, has greater value than multiple negative transgressions. So that person, although quantitatively he crossed many more lines, but because of the value of that positive initiative that he had taken and its innate value of bringing about something positive, he goes into the positive column. and he will classify it as a tzaddik. And you have another person where he does multiple good things, but he does one negative transgression, but because of the nature and the dimension of the sin in the negative essence of what it was, although it's one time or fewer times, that sways the balance to the negative, and he's classified as Rasha, as evil, and he gets a whole different evaluation, a whole different judgment. When the person dies, the soul ascends. And when it ascends, it's judged. And it comes before the heavenly court, and many questions are put to the soul, which is, the soul is the person. The first question which is asked, as we mentioned yesterday, is, did you set times to study Torah? Was being a Jew? The second question which is asked to the person, did you act with honesty in business? The third thing they ask the person is, did you wait the coming of salvation, the coming of Mashiach? Those are the first primary questions. But of course, they evaluate the record. Did he observe dietary laws? Did he speak Lashon Hara? Did he suppress the desire to speak Lashon Hara? The Chofetz Chaim had cited the words of Chazal, of the Midrash, that a person who suppresses the desire to speak Lashon Hara, speak negatively about another person, the light that he merits, an angel cannot fathom that level of illumination. That's the value of suppressing, not speaking Lashon Hara, not speaking destructively about another person. That's the value. Even the greatest angel cannot fathom what that is. So the Rambam writes in the Laws of Tshuva, who is the only one who can make this evaluation? Only God himself. God, the one who knows everything, this evaluation can only be made only by him. Okay? But the soul goes to the soul world. And whatever the judgment is, some people go straight into the world to come, and they bask in God's radiance. Other souls, because they're not perfect enough, they need a degree of purging. Purging is Gehenna. That purges the impurity of the soul, and after it achieves a level of purity, it ascends into the soul world, which is a holding pattern. Some souls, they're so decrepit and so undermined and so abused, the souls go into the oblivion. Into the oblivion, never to go to the soul world. And it's a state of spiritual suffering. At the time of resurrection, the physical matter of that person's body that decomposed in the ground is recreated, and that soul that was deserving of all that it accomplished in the positive in its lifetime is reinfused in that physical body. We're going to talk about what the body is. Now, we discussed, why does a person have to die? No human being lives forever. Every human being dies, including Moshe Rabbeinu, the most perfect Jew ever lived. The patriarchs, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, when they were the location of the divine presence in their lives, they were so holy, they were equivalent of the Holy of Holies. Where they were, the divine presence was. It came to a certain age, they had to pass on. And the soul departed from them. Why does a human being have to die? So we discussed that when Adam ate of the tree of knowledge, the evil of that fruit, because it's identified as a tree, the fruit is good and evil. When he ingested that evil, that evil became integral and intermeshed in every aspect of his physicality, not the soul, in his physicality. As perfect as you are, because it says, there were 4 people never sinned in their lives, but even those people died. Because the physicality is tainted with that impurity of the Eitz Hadas, of the tree of knowledge. Anything which has that level of evil cannot be forever, which we'll discuss in a moment. Why? The person has to die, decompose, and when he will be resurrected, if he merits resurrection, only the pure matter of that body we resurrected, but the evil, which was a result of Adam's sin, will remain in the ground. That will not be resurrected. Why is resurrection a fundamental and one of the tenets of Jewish belief? We discussed earlier, one of the earlier tenets was believing in reward and punishment. You do something good, you're rewarded. You cross the lines that you should not cross, there's punishment, reward and punishment. And we said that's predicated on that God is aware and knows everyone's thought and everyone's action. And because he knows that, every nuance of every aspect of a person's being, therefore, he could actually respond with the correct degree of reward and what a person is deserving in the negative and punishment. If, let's say, only the soul would be rewarded, it's something which is contrary to reward and punishment. Whenever we're challenged in life, is only the soul is challenged. I'll give you an example. A person has a desire to do the wrong thing, and he knows it's wrong, and he suppresses that desire and does not do the wrong thing, which is the right decision. He chose correctly. When he made that choice to suppress, what aspects of his being were involved in that choice? Only his soul, or his body was also part of that decision? The denial of that pleasure, which was due to the suppression of the person's decision. The body was a participant, was denied that pleasure which it could have had, it did not have. So only rewarding the soul is not equitable. As if the soul is rewarded, the body has to be rewarded. A person studies 19 hours a day and sleeps 3 hours a day. And he's dedicates his life to God. And he feels fatigued. And despite the fatigue, he pushes himself. Is in that endeavor, is it only the soul's involved in that endeavor or every aspect of his being? Whereas to fight and push himself and apply himself. The body is no less involved in that positive endeavor, initiative as the soul. So if that's the case, when it comes time to reward, how does God only reward the soul and not reward the body? So if the soul goes to the soul world and basks in God's radiance, which is the ultimate, to be connected to something that's absolute and the most perfect goodness, how is it denied that? The body was a partner in every aspect of the function of that person's life. Therefore, as a result of that, based on the principle and the tenet of reward and punishment, the body has to be resurrected. Because the body has to be able to bask in God's glory, in the radiance of whatever that is, which we don't know what that is, but we know it's something that there's nothing comparable at any level, and it's unfathomable, even by the angels, what that is. But the body is no less deserving than the soul. Therefore, it would be inequitable for the body not to be resurrected. This is even before we talk about what is resurrection. When you fuse the soul back into the body, and now the body's of pure matter, What is the end result of that? And what is that body all about? Okay? Talk about that. So therefore, as a result of this tenet, now, how does it work? Person hasn't been alive for 3,000 years. The soul has been in the holding pattern in the soul world for 3,000 years. It's time for resurrection. God now reunites the soul with the body. The body has turned to dust. How does all that matter come back together, become a body? Now, we had mentioned in the second blessing of the Amidah, of the Shemona Esrei, we speak about God. Who is God? So we say in the second blessing, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed. God sustains life with kindness. Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed. Mechayim Eisim Berachmim Rabim. He resurrects the dead with great mercy. So we talk about two extremes. Life, he sustains with the ultimate kindness, and then he goes and speaks about resurrection of the dead. Then afterwards you say, Rofei Cholim, Somech Noflim, Rofei Cholim, Matir Asurim. Then we start articulating everything that's in between. We first speak about life, resurrection, then we start filling in the gap in between. What do we speak about? B'chal Chaim B'chesed. And what is the application of that? Somech Noflim, he supports the fallen. Rofei Cholim, heals the sick. Matir Asurim, frees the imprisoned. And then we say, B'chayim Eisim, Rachmim Rabim, afterwards. And at the end of the day, he resurrects the dead with great mercy. But that's not the order. The order is first we speak of Mechalka Chaim B'chesed. He sustains life with great, abundant chesed. Mechalka Chaim sustains life with kindness. Mechayim Eisim B'rachmim Rabim. Why do we also jump to the end to come back? Now, we say every day in the morning blessing before the Shema, B'chadesh v'tuvo b'choyam t'masev reishis. And we discussed this concept. That existence exists. Why does it exist? Does it exist because God created the world so many thousands of years ago? Or does it exist because God continuously wills every moment that it should exist? So we had shown and we discussed at length, it exists not because God created the world thousands of years ago. That's not why it continues to exist. Because just as thousands of years ago, God said, let it be. And it became, because he unleashed energies which manifest themselves into what we call creation, all aspects of creation, terrestrial, celestial, life, at many levels. God continues after thousands of years, willing that same existence, evolving continuously, slightly different players, different scenarios, but it's all the same process. Unleashing these energies, manifesting themselves into the reality of this existence. That's Hamachadish B'tuvo V'choyom Tov Masav Reishis. God renews through his goodness continuously the act of creation. So the act of creation, the creative process, is an ongoing process every moment of this existence. Because it's a continuous willing existence as it should manifest itself exactly as God wants it to manifest itself. So let's talk. A person lives 50 years, 70 years. Why do you live every moment of those years? Is it because you lived the moment before? Not because you lived the moment before, and that's why you live the next moment. The reason why you live from moment to moment is because as God willed your first moment, he continues to will your second moment and your third moment. And this process of willing these moments continues unceasingly for 70 years, for 80 years, for 90 years. at various levels. Person ages, of course, the energies which are unleashed and he wills, it's slightly different. A person starts declining at a certain point in his life. Why before the Great Flood, people lived until 700, 800, 900 years? And a 100-year-old person was considered like a lad. Very simple. Because the energies God's released continuously was energies that at 100 years you're a young person. And only you start aging at the age of 700. Because again, everything's dependent on the level of energy that God releases continuously. But it's a continuous process of creation, because creation initially was releasing energies, manifesting themselves into realities. That continues for as long as God wants that person to be alive. God wills, sustains life with chesed. What is that process? It's an ongoing willing. Then the person dies. Generations are no longer here. All of a sudden, God says, those generations that at one time existed, they're coming back into existence. So why are they no longer here? Because God stopped willing their existence. But if God starts immediately willing those people's existence, immediately they exist. Because from moment to moment, every moment there's a new existence. Except we don't recognize the moment to moment because it's ongoing. Here you have a hiatus of 3,000 years. God says, you know something? What existed 3,000 years ago, I will that existence should come back. No problem. Because as that existence existed 3,000 years ago, up to the point of those people's demise, he's willing the energies to reinstate it. But it's the exact same thing. So the process of Bechalkel Chaim Bechesed, sustaining life with Chesed, is the same process of Mechayim Mesim Barachmim Rabim. He brings the dead back with great mercy. It's the exact same thing. So I ask the question, if it's Bechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Chesed is indiscriminate kindness. He sustains life with indiscriminate kindness. You know, the world has all kinds of people in this world. You have good people, evil people, middle of the road people, but God wants to have an existence. You have a representation of every type of person, of every ilk, good, evil, middle of the road, many shades of everything, because that's what the world is all about. Indiscriminate kindness is chesed. What is mercy? Mercy means that it only happens if you deserve, except the way it's doled out, it's with mercy. But if there's no chance that it has any value, it doesn't happen. That's rachmim, that's mercy. So meaning, a person had already spent his life living this life. Resurrection now is bringing the person back. Bringing the person back is not part of existence. You want to bring him back into existence. For this you need rachmim. Because if you lived your life and you lived it not sufficiently as you should have, qualitatively, you did not meet certain milestones. You know something? When it's time to check out, what we call checkout time, and now it's to come back, you failed on your first watch, you're not coming back. The first watch, that's existence. Every man has a choice. We give everybody a chance. And whatever you choose, that's going to be your fare. To coming back, you have to be deserving. To what degree do you have to be deserving? The process to bring the person back is the same process as maintaining him the first time he was here. But coming back now, it's not even enough to have rachmim, that God should be merciful. You need rachmim rabim. You need enormous mercy. Without enormous mercy, to come back is not simple. So we say God sustains life with chesed, indiscriminate kindness. And he gives, although God knows the future and he knows the person will fail, he gives each man a chance. That's choice. Life is choice. Multiple choices. Once you leave this existence, and now it's a question of coming back to be deserving of reward, as we said, because in every decision, it's not only the soul was part of that decision, the body was no less as a partner in that decision. So if you're coming back, are you worthy enough that God should reinstate the process of willing your existence to be able to benefit for whatever that benefit will be? For that, even rachmim is not enough. You need rachmim rabim. Because a person is never perfect enough to be able to come back, to receive what he deserves, because the physical and the spiritual as one unit have participated in certain endeavors and certain decisions. But factually speaking, the process of B'chalkel Chaim B'chesed, God sustains life with chesed, and Chaim Mesim B'rachmim Rabim, it's the identical process. Therefore, the hiatus between the two of them does make a difference, because it's the exact same thing being repeated, despite the fact that you had a gap between the life and the resurrection, bringing the person back. Afterwards, we say in the Amidah, Somech Noflim, Rofei Cholim, Matir Asurim. Those are incidentals. Those are realities of what life is all about. But in terms of the actual process of life and resurrection, it's the exact same process. It's willing your existence. We're not going to finish today on this, but just to give you an understanding, when the soul goes to the world to come, even on the holding pattern, if the soul is not perfect, sufficiently perfect, and there's certain impurities of the soul, you cannot stand before God and bask in his radiance if you have that result of sin. It has to be purged, has to be extracted from your soul. That's what we call Gehenna. After it's been extracted, you go to the soul world and you fully bask in God's radiance based on what you deserve. The body itself has to decompose and turn to dust. If the evil is part of that entity called physicality, if that body would be eternal and be deserving and resurrected with that evil, what would happen? That means the soul and body would be associated with God in the spiritual realm. Can't be. Because just as the soul by itself, it has that impurity, it has to be purged to be able to come before God and cleave to God in the ultimate sense. Ultimately, at time of resurrection, when the body is reunited with the soul body entity now basks in God's radiance. But if that body contains the evil of the tree of knowledge, it can't be. It doesn't qualify to be in God's presence, because the essence of evil is part of that entity. Therefore, the body has to first decompose. And when it's resurrected, only the pure matter of that original physicality is resurrected. But the evil remains in the ground, because now this new existence is the eternal being, which integrated fully, the soul body will be able to bask in the world to come, to be able to be a beneficiary of the radiance of God, whatever that is, which the prophet says, no human eyes ever seen it or fathomed it, and it's not fathomable. And that's what we await, not only the coming Mashiach, but the ultimate reward, which is a combination of physical soul reunification, which is the ultimate concept of reward and punishment, that the body being a partner in every decision of our life, therefore the body deserves no less reward than the soul, therefore there has to be resurrection.